Hey everybody, Ginger on Wheels here. Today I want to give you my full review of the Kaabo Wolf Warrior. Arguably the most well-equipped electric scooter for off-roading yet. I want to start by saying that I'd like this review to differ from other reviews you might have seen. I'm not just going to show you B-roll footage of the scooter while reading off the manufacturer's spec sheet. I feel like reviews that just tell you what you already know while showing you really cool footage of the scooter are a waste of everybody's time. And I know you're planning on buying this with your hard-earned money, and you deserve more than just a touch-and-go review from a guy who borrowed the scooter for a weekend. I'm here today to show you every angle of the Wolf Warrior from a real owner, the good, bad, and ugly, so let's dive in. So, just to get the specs out of the way so we're on the same page, the Kaabo Wolf Warrior is a $3,200 electric scooter. Expensive, right? But it's got a 60-volt, 35-amp-hour LG battery, which surprisingly accounts for almost half that cost at retail price. If you're riding the scooter around at 10 miles per hour, that huge battery will allegedly give you a range of 93 miles, but it takes around 14 hours to charge the battery. Luckily, it has two charging ports, which can reduce that time to 7 hours with standard chargers. There's two 1200 watt motors, one in each wheel. Together, they produce a max output of 5400 watts. What's the top speed, you might be wondering? Well, the manufacturer claims 50 miles per hour, believe it or not. It also has front and rear hydraulic disc brakes, a mini motor throttle display, dual front forks with hydraulic front suspension, not unlike what you'd expect to see on a motorcycle. There's also two full-blown headlights, a very loud electric horn, rear coil spring suspension, electronic regenerative braking, anti-lock braking, a rear brake light, blue LED underglow lights, a kickstand, and it has the ability to fold in half. Its closest competition in the electric scooter market right now is the 010X, 011X, the Dualtron Ultra V2, and Dualtron Thunder, possibly the Weeped GT50E. On paper, the Kaabo Wolf Warrior sounds like a really great scooter, right? Even the name sounds cool. But it's really expensive. Is it worth the cost? Does it hold up over time? Well, let's dig into some of the finer details and find out. Now, coming from someone who's owned a lot of electric scooters in the past, and even some gas-powered GoPed scooters and motorcycles, my first ride on the Kaabo Wolf Warrior blew me away. Granted, my other electric scooters were only a couple thousand watts at most, but I don't think anything could have even prepared me for the acceleration on the Wolf. The power is instant, and that giant battery means the power is also relentless. I usually ride my Wolf Warrior off-road, and my body usually runs out of batteries before the Wolf does. I love the massive tubeless air-filled tires and how solid the scooter feels at high speed. But nothing's perfect though, especially in this newly emerging high-end electric scooter market. Luckily, the Wolf isn't victim to wobbly stems like some of the Dualtrons, and the battery isn't going to fail you like a Swagtron or a GoTrax, and it's not a scooter that's going to leave you with repeated flat tires like a little M365 scooter. However, there have been a few isolated reports of bolts shearing off on the Wolf Warrior. I probably only know this because it happened to me, and then I went digging around on the internet for similar reports, but I talked with the retailer who sold me the scooter, as well as the sales rep from Kaabo, and we come to the conclusion that uneven force was exerted on some screws because they weren't 100% tight when they were shipped from the manufacturer. My advice to prevent this from happening on your scooter would be to just make sure that they're all tight before every ride. If you're really concerned, you can go the extra mile like I did and remove every screw on the scooter and apply some thread locker like Loctite Blue and then put all the screws back in. And you can check out how to do that in this video above. One other anecdote that I feel obligated to tell you in this most thorough review is that my first Wolf Warrior, yes you heard me right, my first Wolf Warrior, came with faulty suspension. The problem showed itself after about 100 miles of riding, but luckily Fluid Freeride, being the amazing distributor that they are, took that scooter back and shipped me a new scooter free of charge. The scooter was actually leaking hydraulic suspension all over my floor. There were a couple people on the internet who I saw had the same problem, so if you're going to buy this scooter, I highly recommend avoiding the Alibaba knockoffs and buying it from somewhere that can back the manufacturer warranty, like Fluid Freeride can. Don't get the wrong idea though. It's not like the scooter's fragile or anything. Quite the opposite, in fact. Most of them aren't faulty at all. Thousands of these things have been sold and there's only a handful of negative reports that I found. So rest assured this scooter will probably last you for years. It's got two huge front fork tubes that are connected to one of the most beastly folding mechanisms I've ever seen, and that folding mechanism is then attached to a big metal frame that goes around the whole scooter and even gives you a little spot to brace your foot against. To me, this was a huge perk over the Dualtron, where the foot brace is an expensive add-on accessory. Probably over half the miles on my scooter were put on there on wooded trails or dirt roads, and I've yet to have any real mechanical failure. Even when the brakes are totally covered in dirt and grit and the scooter is dripping with mud, it somehow just always seems to work. I don't suggest this, but I will tell you that I got stuck in the pouring rain one time, and despite my better judgment, I decided to continue on with my 5-mile ride home. The rain didn't do anything to my scooter. I won't tell you that it's waterproof, but it is IPX4 water resistant rated. I even rode my scooter in the snow, and when it was definitely difficult to balance, the melting snow didn't give my scooter any trouble either. Speaking of water, that brings me to another thing I should mention. The stock fenders, while cool looking, are pretty useless. I ended up having to fabricate my own custom Fender Extensions. This wasn't hard, and you can watch the video above here, but it would be nice if Kaabo did a little road testing on the next version and got some fenders that actually do keep the mud and water off your scooter and pants. So, this scooter's heavy. There's no way around it. I even threw my back out lifting it over a railing in my velodrome video. But the weight is both a burden and a blessing. It's a burden for obvious reasons. Everyone hates you if you try and bring it on the bus, it's hard to lift in a car, and generally hard to maneuver in tight spaces. But it's a real blessing because at high speeds you won't find another scooter this stable, I promise. The weight combined with the wide handlebars, which come with the scooter, make for a buttery smooth ride, and while it isn't very nimble, it does feel awesome to just plow over and through obstacles without a care. I specifically recall one time where I bounced the front tire up over some sticker bushes, but I ran over them with my back tire. And then the front tire came crashing down on a glass bottle, which I broke, and then my rear tire ran over that bottle. No damage, believe it or not. The Dualtron Ultra sort of reminds me of a sporty Jeep, where the Wolf Warrior would be more like a Sherman tank. It even kind of sounds cool when you have the off-road tires mounted. Hey, speaking of those handlebars, I'm 6 feet 2 inches tall and 190 pounds, and this scooter fits me fine. I was worried before I bought it that the bars would be too low for me to ride comfortably, but that's just not the case at all. I really like the geometry of the scooter too. The Nan Robot D4 Plus I had, for example, was really short and forced a forward stance which made for a more nimble scooter, but was really squirrely above 30 miles an hour and much harder to take off-road. The Wolf Warrior has a longer frame, and it has that footrest in the back, and it also has some nice rubber grip on the deck, so it keeps you planted and secure feeling at any speed. One of my other favorite aspects of this scooter is the lights. Like I said earlier, it has 2 full-blown functioning headlights, and they even have 3 built-in modes. You got high, low, and strobe. There's also 2 white runner lights that you can turn on. I can't tell you how nice it is to not have to worry about if my headlight is charged, and even if I was forced to mount my own headlight on the handlebars, like most every other scooter, I'd be hard-pressed to find any light as bright as these. You need to make sure they're angled down when you install them, otherwise you'll literally incinerate other trailgoers. If you're worried about getting murdered by a moving car on the road, fear no more. There are also blue LED underglow lights on this scooter, so that other drivers have a chance to see you before you go flying over their car like Free Willy. Also, mounted underneath these lights is a very nondescript horn, but don't be fooled. This thing blasts like a cruise ship, 99% guaranteed to scare the pants off anyone in front of you. It's so loud that it's hard to use in practical situations. I bent mine up and covered it with tape, and that seems to help. I haven't given anyone any heart attacks yet, that I know of. Oh, speaking of death, they say this scooter goes 50 miles an hour, and I bet you're wondering if that's true. It very much is. When I've got a full charge, this thing will propel my chunky ginger body up to 51 miles an hour. That top speed does pare down pretty quickly with the charge level though. The top speed on the scooter when the thing is charged at 85% or less is around 46 miles per hour on flat ground. The power is good for more than just top speed though. You can power up to 35 miles an hour pretty quickly on any road, even off-road or steep hills. Just like most high-end scooters, you can switch it into single motor mode. When you have as much power as the Wolf does, single motor mode actually becomes usable. And when you're cruising, it's quite nice when you're trying to save battery. Just beware that one flaw that the Wolf has is that excessive use of the single motor at top speed can cause it to overheat and shut off when you're riding. I had this happen to me on my first ride. Definitely not a good thing. The motor does turn back on after a couple minutes, but it seems like a big safety hazard, so if you're cruising in single motor mode, make sure to keep the turbo setting off. Ooh, speaking of saving battery, do you even need to do that with the Wolf? The scooter has a 93 mile range, right? Well, technically it does, in mode 1 with eco turned on, but the top speed there is just 10 miles an hour, and you have very little torque, so I doubt anyone that dropped $3,000 on a scooter is going to want to ride that slow. But if you're a true bro in dual motor mode with speed 3 and turbo mode, you're looking at about 35 miles range. If you want to take your whip off-road in max settings, you're looking at closer to 25 miles. Like I said earlier though, riding this thing for 25 miles off-road is physically exhausting. It's like skiing or snowboarding. It's really hard work, but it's one of the most fun things you can actually do in human life, in my opinion. Just watch this. If you're still hesitant about taking it off-road, don't be. The front suspension's nice and cushy to keep your hands from going numb, and the rear suspension's more stiff to keep the scooter body more rigid and nimble on more technical areas off-road. Technically, I'll bottom out the suspension if I hit a large tree root dead on, but in general, you're going to be pretty hard-pressed to find a scooter with better suspension for off-roading. Even with all these scooters' little flaws, I still firmly believe it's the best electric off-roading scooter on the market. You simply can't find another scooter with smooth suspension, responsive steering, insane speed and torque, and the kicker, built-in headlights that actually work. If I didn't have a scooter and I was in the market again knowing what I know now, I would still choose the Wolf Warrior. The scooter is just worth every penny. I've owned electric scooters in the past that have left me wanting more, and it's just really no fun. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a Wolf Warrior owner that isn't still smiling from ear to ear. I would love to see a 72-volt version of the Wolf with 1600-watt motors in the future, but for now, this pure insanity will do.